Okay, let's jump right in. Get this. Imagine monkeys, right? Solving puzzles. Not for a treat, not to avoid anything bad, just because they enjoyed it.
Uh-huh. The puzzle itself was the reward.
Exactly. But then the researchers offered them raisins a nice reward, and suddenly their performance, like, dropped. They got less interested.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And it's like that candle problem, too. You offer people money to solve a creative task faster, and they actually take longer.
It just flies in the face of what we think works,
Uh-huh.
the whole carrot and stick idea.
It really does. And the book we're looking at today, Drive, argues exactly that a lot of our basic beliefs about motivation are, well, fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, it highlights this huge gap, really, between what the science has been showing for decades and what most companies, schools, even we ourselves actually do.
So our goal here is to kind of unpack that surprising truth from the book, what really drives people to do great work and feel fulfilled.
And as we go through this, it's probably helpful for you listening to think about your own drivers, what really gets you going, what makes you feel engaged versus just, going through the motions.
Absolutely. Connecting it to your own life makes these ideas really click.
Definitely. And speaking of reflection, if you find this sparks some thinking, you might like our YouTube channel, Mindful Moments. It uses AI analysis of books, kind of like this one, to offer perspectives that encourage that deeper thought. Worth checking out.
Good point. So maybe we should start with what the book calls the old way, Motivation 2.0.
Right, the system we mostly operate under. Basically rewards and punishments, carrots and sticks.
It has really deep roots, going back to the Industrial Revolution. People like Frederick Winslow Taylor and his scientific management breaking work down into simple steps, then using money or penalties to get compliance.
And, we have to acknowledge for certain kinds of tasks, it did work, especially back then. Algorithmic stuff, follow the instructions, get the widget made.
Yeah, for routine, predictable work, that system helped drive a lot of progress. No doubt about it.
But the book's core argument is that system is just. It's outdated. It doesn't match the kind of work most of us do now or want to do. Work that needs creativity, judgment, problem solving.
That mismatch is so clear when you look at the example of Microsoft Encarta versus Wikipedia. Remember Encarta?
Oh, yeah. Paid experts, big budget, traditional setup.
Right. Versus Wikipedia, all volunteers, working for free, driven by something else entirely.
And if you'd asked anyone back then, they'd have bet the farm on Encarta. It seemed like the only model that made sense.
But Wikipedia won, hands down. Became this massive, constantly updated resource. It's kind of a perfect real-world test case, showing a different motivational engine can achieve incredible things.
So that really sets up the problems with sticking to the old carrots and sticks model for today's world. The book lists, 7 deadly flaws?
Yeah, and they're pretty serious. It's not just that they don't work sometimes, they can actively backfire.
Okay, so the first one.
They can kill intrinsic motivation, that inherent enjoyment or interest you might have in doing something. The book calls it the Sawyer effect.
Ah, like Tom Sawyer tricking his friends into paying him to whitewash the fence, turning play into work.
Exactly. And there's that study with the preschoolers who like drawing. Offer one group a reward for drawing, the other group nothing.
And later, the rewarded kids drew less during free playtime. The reward basically poisoned their natural interest.
Right. Flaw number 2 is maybe even more surprising. They can actually reduce performance, especially on tasks that need thinking, not just rote muscle memory.
Reduce performance with a reward.
The book mentions a study in India. Higher financial stakes for cognitive tasks led to worse outcomes.
Wow.
And it's not alone. That London School of Economics review of pay-for-performance plans, it found they could have a negative impact overall. When you need people to think creatively or solve complex problems, dangling a big carrot can actually hinder them.
Which flows right into the third flaw, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Crushing creativity.
Precisely. Rewards, especially those if you do X, then you get Y types, tend to narrow our focus, like blinkers on a horse.
That explains the candle problem result. The reward made people fixate on the box, just holding the task, not seeing it as a potential shelf.
Exactly. It blocks that wider, more associative thinking that creativity relies on. Artists often feel this too-commissioned work can feel more constrained than personal projects.
Okay, so less intrinsic motivation, worse performance, less creativity. What's number 4?
They can crowd out good behavior. Altruism, cooperation, citizenship. If you start paying for things people might have done out of goodwill, it changes the whole dynamic.
Like offering money for blood donations, potentially reducing donations. because it's not about helping anymore. It's a transaction.
Or that famous daycare study in Israel, they introduced a fine for parents picking up kids late.
And more parents started showing up late.
Right, because the fine became a price they were willing to pay, replacing the social obligation or guilt they felt before.
That's wild. Okay, fifth flaw.
Encouraging shortcuts, cheating, unethical stuff. If the only thing that matters is hitting the target to get the reward, people will find ways, sometimes unethical ways.
You get what you measure, right? Focus only on the number, and the quality or ethics might go out the window. Think Enron focusing solely on quarterly earnings.
A classic tragic example. Then, number 6, rewards can become addictive.
Like a drug.
In a way. The effect wears off. You need bigger rewards or more frequent ones just to get the same motivational kick. That economist, Suvorov, talked about this. You see it with kids in chores sometimes. The price keeps going up.
Yeah, I can see that. And the final one, number 7.
They foster short-term thinking. The focus shifts entirely to the immediate reward, the next quarter's results. Long-term investments, research, building relationships, things that pay off later get ignored.
The book links this kind of thinking to things like the 2008 financial crisis, where short-term gains were chased at the expense of long-term stability.
Exactly. So when you put all these flaws together, it paints a pretty damning picture of Motivation 2.0, especially for the kind of complex creative work that defines the 21st century.
But it's not all bad, right? The book does say carrots and sticks have their place.
Oh, absolutely. It's important to be nuanced. For those really dull, routine, purely algorithmic tasks where there's zero intrinsic interest to begin with.
Like stuffing envelopes.
Perfect example. For stuff like that, an external reward can provide a little nudge. It's not likely to kill your passion for stuffing envelopes because, let's face it, there probably wasn't any.
Okay, so for truly boring stuff, maybe. But what about just basic pay? That's external, isn't it?
Yes, and this is critical. The book talks about the zen of compensation. Before any incentives, baseline pay has to be adequate and fair. Fair compared to colleagues, fair compared to the market.
The idea being pay people enough so money isn't the main thing they're thinking about. Take it off the table is a major issue.
Precisely. Get the baseline right, make it fair. Maybe even pay a bit above average like Eckerloff and Yellen suggested, because that attracts talent and boosts morale anyway. Then people can focus on the work.
So fair pay is foundational. But if you do use extra rewards beyond salary, especially for thinking work, the book has advice there too.
It does. It strongly prefers now that rewards over if-then rewards.
Okay, break that down. If then is.
If you finish this project by Friday, then you get a bonus. It's contingent, feels controlling, and risks triggering those negative side effects we talked about.
Got it. And now that.
That's non-contingent. It comes after the fact, often unexpectedly. Wow, you did an amazing job on that difficult project. Now that it's successfully completed, here's a bonus as a token of appreciation.
So it feels less like a bribe beforehand and more like genuine recognition afterward?
Exactly. And it often works best when it's not just cash, but maybe positive feedback, public acknowledgement, or an opportunity related to their success. The framing and timing are key.
Okay, so the old system, Motivation 2.0, is buggy for modern work. What's the upgrade? What does the book propose instead?
It introduces Motivation 3.0, which is powered by what it calls our third drive.
Third drive. So beyond basic survival needs and the drive for external rewards punishments.
That's the idea. This third drive is described as innate, this fundamental human urge to direct our own lives, to learn and grow, to create things, and to contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
And this drive fuels what the book calls type I behavior.
Right. Type I is intrinsically motivated behavior. It contrasts with type X, which is fueled primarily by extrinsic desires, money, fame, status.
Is type I something you're just born with?
The book argues we're all born with the potential for it. The underlying drive is there. But type I behavior itself needs to be nurtured and developed. It depends on the environment. And crucially, it's renewable. Using it makes it stronger.
That sounds a lot like the work of psychologists Deci and Ryan and their self-determination theory.
Absolutely. Their research identified core psychological needs, autonomy, competence, and relatedness, which are basically the foundation stones for Motivation 3.0, as the book presents it.
Which brings us to the 3 key elements, the nutrients for type I behavior: autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
Let's take autonomy first.
Yeah.
It's that basic need to feel like you're in the driver's seat of your own life. You have choice, volition.
And the book breaks it down into 4 aspects, right? The 4 T's.
Yeah. Autonomy over your task, what you actually work on, your time when you do it, your technique, how you approach it, and your team, who you collaborate with.
And we see companies actually doing this.
Definitely. Think of Atlassian's 20% time engineers get 1 day a week to work on whatever project interests them. Huge innovations came out of that.
Or 3M's famous 15% time. That's where Post-it notes came from, wasn't it? Someone just tinkering.
Exactly. A failed adhesive experiment turned into a massive product because someone had the freedom to play around with it. And then you have things like results-only work environments, ROWE.
Where it doesn't matter when or where you work, just that you get the results.
Right. Maximum autonomy over time and technique. These aren't just feel-good perks. They're designed to tap into that powerful drive for self-direction.
It really shifts the focus from managing people's time to trusting them to deliver. Makes you think, doesn't it? How much autonomy do you feel you have in your daily work or life? What difference does it make?
Okay, nutrient number 2, mastery.
This is that urge to get better at stuff, right?
Yeah.
To improve our skills, to become competent in things that matter to us.
Yes, and this connects strongly to Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow.
That feeling of being totally absorbed, losing track of time when the challenge is just right for your skills.
That's it. Finding those Goldilocks tasks, not too easy, not too hard, is key for engagement and skill development. The book mentions Green Cargo, the Swedish rail company, actually focusing on helping employees find flow to boost satisfaction and performance.
But mastery isn't just about being in the zone all the time. The book says it has 3 laws. The first is, mastery is a mindset.
Drawing heavily on Carol Dweck's work, do you have a fixed mindset, believing your talents are set in stone? Or a growth mindset, believing you can develop abilities through effort?
A growth mindset is crucial for mastery because you see challenges as opportunities to learn, not threats to your ego.
Exactly. The second law, mastery is a pain.
Meaning it takes hard work, deliberate practice.
Yes, it's often grueling. It's pushing yourself, making mistakes, learning from them. Think of Anders Ericsson's research on expert performance, or Daniel Chambliss talking about the mundanity of excellence. In Olympic swimmers, it's about consistent, focused effort over a long time. That West Point study showing grit predicts success better than test scores fits here too.
So it requires perseverance, not just talent. And the third law.
Mastery is an asymptote.
Like in math, a line you get closer and closer to but never actually touch.
Precisely. You can always get better, always refine your skills, but you never achieve absolute final perfection.
Which could be frustrating, yet also kind of motivating. The pursuit itself becomes the point.
That's the idea. It keeps you engaged, always striving. So think about something you're trying to master. Are you bringing a growth mindset? Are you willing to put in the effort, the pain? And can you appreciate the journey knowing perfection is unreachable?
It reframes the whole process.
Yep.
At the final nutrient, purpose.
This taps into that deep human need to connect to something larger than ourselves, to feel like what we do matters, contributes, serves a higher goal.
And the book suggests this is becoming even more important now, with demographic shifts.
Yeah, think about baby boomers reaching retirement age, asking more about legacy and meaning, and younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, explicitly seeking purpose-driven work, not just a paycheck.
We're seeing organizations respond too, aren't we?
Yeah.
Companies built around a mission beyond just profit.
Absolutely. TMSU's one-for-one model, B corporations legally committed to social environmental goals, social businesses like those Muhammad Yunus promotes, cooperatives. They're blurring the lines.
They operate with a different kind of bottom line, where purpose is just as important, if not more so, than profit. And they attract people motivated by that purpose.
It really prompts the question for you listening. What's your purpose? How does what you spend your time on connect to something bigger?
So autonomy, mastery, purpose. Those are the core ingredients of Motivation 3.0. How does this translate into practical things, like, say, paying people? We touched on the baseline.
Right. The Zen of compensation, pay fairly so it's not an issue. And if you do use performance metrics for bonuses or raises, especially for complex roles.
Make them broad, not just one simple number.
Exactly. Use multiple measures, peer feedback, customer impact, contributions to the team, things that reflect overall value and are harder to game. It encourages a focus on genuine contribution, not just hitting a narrow target.
And these ideas apply beyond work, too, right? Like in education or raising kids.
Definitely. The book suggests applying a Type I homework test. Does an assignment offer choice, autonomy? Is it engaging and challenging, mastery? Is the relevance clear, purpose?
And little things, like not tying allowance directly to basic chores. Teaching kids that Contributing to the family is just part of being in the family, not a job.
Or helping them see why they're learning something in school, connecting it to their interests or the real world. That builds intrinsic motivation way better than just grades.
There are even schools designed around these principles, prioritizing self-direction, project-based learning, real-world connections.
Places like Big Picture Learning, Sudbury Valley Schools, Unschoolers, they're experimenting with fostering Type I learning.
So wrapping this all up, the core message from the book seems to be this fundamental mismatch between the old carrot and stick model and our deeper innate drives.
Exactly. We're wired for autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And the science, as presented in the book, strongly suggests that building environments at work, at school, at home that nurture these drives is the key.
It's not just about feeling good. It actually leads to better performance, more innovation, and greater well-being.
That's the surprising but ultimately hopeful truth.
And exploring these kinds of ideas, really digging into what makes us tick, is exactly what we aim to do here on our podcasts. We hope this discussion gave you some food for thought.
And don't forget, if you want to explore more insights like these, often drawn from AI analysis of influential books, check out Mindful Moments over on YouTube.
So maybe a final thought to mull over as you go about your week. If real motivation comes from within, not from external pushes and pulls,
how can you intentionally cultivate more of that inner drive, that autonomy, mastery, or purpose in your own life, starting today?
Maybe it's taking a bit more initiative on a project at work, finding time to practice a skill you care about, or connecting your daily tasks to a bigger picture that matters to you.
Small steps can make a big difference.
We really encourage you to subscribe to our feed wherever you get your podcasts so you catch our future explorations.
And if this conversation resonated, please share it with a friend, a colleague, maybe a manager or a teacher, anyone who might benefit from thinking differently about motivation.
If you want to go even deeper, we recommend picking up the book itself, Drive. There's a link in the description where you can find it.
But most importantly, just keep thinking critically. Notice the motivational strategies around you, question the assumptions, and reflect on what truly drives you.